Welcome to the Waxing Podcast. I'm Kirsten Getzelman, esthetician, educator, and your host. Each week, we'll dive into real conversations, industry tips, and the kind of advice every beauty pro should have in their back pocket. This show is sponsored by Enso, a woman and esthetician founded brand bringing better options to everyday beauty pros. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to the Waxing Podcast. My name is Kirsten. I am your host. I am also Tampa Waxer on Instagram. I'm here on the Waxing Podcast on Instagram, and I am so excited to just get in. The last episode that I did was all about what to expect and what to get started with. So if you haven't listened to that and you want to know what the podcast is all about, I highly recommend you taking a look into that episode. But for those of you who are moving past just episode to episode, we're going to get right in. No spiels. Let's just dive in and let's learn today. So today's topic is going to be what I would do if I were starting my aesthetics career over. This is going to be a really great episode for those who are in school. This is going to be a really great episode for those who are new, but I don't ever want to tell people that if you are a seasoned esthetician like me, that this is not also a good episode, because one of my favorite mentors that I've ever worked with said to me one time, even if you learn just one thing in one, summit or episode or course or anything that you buy, that could be the one thing that sends your trajectory of success on to a whole nother level. And so I always tell people, like, don't ever discredit thinking you know an episode before you tie it into actually listening to it, because you never know what you're going to leave with. And so let me just give you like an honest guide of being an esthetician and, what I did wrong and what I think you could be doing right. Because at the end of the day, the really fun thing about living in 2025 as a new esthetician is that there's people like me who bring information to you that makes your shortcut possible. Even though some of us had to do it the long way, which some of us are bitter about it, not me. I'm never bitter about that. Just kidding. It's really fun to give back. And I feel like I'm in a cool place to be able to like really just tell you everything without feeling like I need to gatekeep and all of that. I mean, hello, I've been podcasting for 5 years. I think if I wanted to gatekeep, I probably have been doing a terrible job because I've been just yapping on here. So this is basically me being somebody who's been in the industry for a really long time. I've been a speaker. I've been an educator for a brand where I spoke globally. I've been to trade shows where I've done on the floor demos for other brands. I've spoke. I also have had my own booth. I have been an esthetician where I've been an employee. I've been an employee at a boutique salon, so not even a chain salon. And I've went out on my own. And so like, I really promise you, I have lived every single life there is to live, mostly in this industry, at least at one time. So I'm a really, really great source of information. I sometimes don't even give myself enough credit for that. I'm going to share with you what I wish I knew earlier. And if I were starting out as an esthetician right now in 2025, this is literally what I would do. And you should do it. Please get off this podcast episode and do it. And then I'm going to help you, being an esthetician who's new, old, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to help you avoid burnout. I'm going to help you avoid comparison, and I'm going to help you avoid confusion, because both of those things, and I say both, but all three of those things are completely normal. They happen. We do them because we're human. And so however I can navigate that for you, I'm going to do it. So let's dive in. Okay. Now, the really fun thing about our industry, but the really hard thing about our industry is this: there are so many lanes to pick from. And isn't that a funny thing that that's both the easiest and the hardest thing about our industry? Let me make some sense here. It's the easiest thing about our industry because we have so many options that you can avoid burnout at all costs. Because if you get bored doing something, there is another lane you can pick. I find that to be so, so cool. Like, I think to myself who I would be if I took the traditional route, going to college, picking a corporate job, and then just staying on that ladder. And I know the job can, transfer depending on what position you are and what position you do. But at the end of the day, you're kind of always in that same lane. Where, like, in our industry, you could be a lash artist, you could then turn to a brow artist, you could also be a facialist, you could work for a doctor, you could be an educator, you could be a course creator, you could be a podcast host, you could be a, somebody like me who started my own brand, like in the sense of like a B2B platform. Like, hello, you could literally change your lives so many times. Now, that's the fun part. But the flip side, because there's always a flip side of that coin, is that it also can be the hard part, right? Because there is so many things to do that I think sometimes we discredit ourselves pretty fast before we give ourselves a moment to sit in what we think we want to do to make sure that we like do and do not want to do it. It's so easy to see someone else doing something that's making them successful and you think that that should be your path too because they're doing it. But I can promise you that it's not your path if it doesn't feel natural and it doesn't feel like it was like a happenstance, like a fun one where you feel like you fell into it and all of that stuff. Like, don't force yourself to do something just because other people are doing it. So that's like the flip side of that coin. I always say don't try to master every single thing at once. So in school, you're going to get taught to do a lot of services. But in the real world, I highly recommend you hone down what you love to do in school. Again, like I said, this is going to be right now for students, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into it serving everybody. But my recommendation is obviously doing all the things that you can do in school in terms of like learning. So learn how to wax, learn how to do facials, learn how to do laser, learn how to do anything that they hand you. But while you're learning, also take account and listen to yourself about like what feels really good for you and what does not. And what does feel good for you in the moment, if you can afford it. I know when you're in school, it's a little bit tough, but like if you can start following people on Instagram that are like masters at that craft. So like if you like facials, I highly recommend, figuring out what type of facial. Is it hydrofacial? Is it gua sha? Is it like a holistic view? Like try to find the people in the industry who are really mastering that and start to follow them. This is free things that you can do. And then if you have the money and if they have a program, I always recommend you paying for these programs outside of school because a lot of the times these people have poured their heart and their souls and all of their secrets into it, which is why they're charging you. And most of the time at school, you might just get more of like a basic training. I know some people have the luxury of having brands come in and do things, which I think is so awesome. But if you don't have that luxury, then you have to, do it that way. I highly recommend that. But don't try to master everything at once you're out. Really take your time. I wish and I feel like I did. So like this isn't like an I wish I did because I do. I actually started out doing facials before I started doing waxing. When I was in school, I thought I wanted to be a medical esthetician and I thought that I wanted to work underneath a doctor. And so I ended up getting my aesthetics license and then I went to the laser side of it. And then I took all my tests, yada, yada. I actually did interview with some medical directors, never got hired. And then I stayed in bartending for a while because I just couldn't find a job. And if I did find anything, it was like something so chain where like I just wasn't going to make as much as I was being a bartender. So again, I have my stories in some of my old episodes and old seasons of like kind of how I was like a late bloomer esthetician, but let that be a lesson that you can be that way and still be successful. But if I had done anything different, I would have, you know, honed in a little bit clearer, but at the same time, I feel like I did a good job. So I did interviews. I didn't get picked for any of them. And then I ended up getting a job where I was a facialist. And so I focused on facials for a long time and I realized that I didn't like it, but I did give myself quite a bit of time in that job before then I moved on to waxing, ended up loving it. I loved the instant gratification. If you're a waxer, then you know what that is exactly. I I really, honed in on waxing. Like I that was like the first time that I was like, okay, I feel like I'm at home and let me figure out how to do this in the best way that I can do it. And a lot of that was like getting online and talking about it and sharing carousels that I do now and all of that stuff. Like that continuously keeps me on the path of learning. So, my recommendation to you, try everything in school, but once you're out, really narrow it down to a couple of things that you think you want to do and then go all in on those things. Because unless you give it 100%, don't try to fill each cup 20%. You're always going to be the esthetician in your head that is just like okay. And I would love to see more people master one or two things. Like, and don't be afraid of your menu being small. I think that's a big thing too. Is like when you get out of school, you open up a place and then you just want to be booked. So you decide to put everything on your menu. Don't do that. Don't do it. I know it's going to sound tempting. I know you're hearing this from somebody who is like a seasoned esthetician. So you're like, you don't know what it feels like. But I do know what it feels like. And what I know for a fact is that it's so much harder to tell your clients that you are no longer doing certain services than not putting it on there in the first place. Okay. It is so much harder to take away services that you have clients love than it is for you not to put it on there in the first place. So, like, think small so that you can be really, really good at your job because that's how you get booked. You get booked by being good, marketing yourself, SEO, website, but not because you offer every single thing. If anything, that actually makes people not want to book with you because they're trying to find experts in their field. Again, changing lanes for me and picking waxing and just going in on that alone, I mean, has obviously been trajectory. That's not the right word for that. It has been, what is the word? I almost said catastrophic, but like that's not right. I've been reading way too many fantasy books. Has been like the ideal plan for me. And so take it from me. Take it from me. And then, like I said, I'm giving you permission. I'm telling you to do it in school. I'm telling you to do it in the beginning. If you work underneath somebody as an employee, oh my gosh, try everything. Because most of the time, if you're working as an employee, that then your boss is going to pay for all of your training. So I never said no to anything that my boss wanted me to do because if anything, if I hated it, I got the certificate for it, or if I loved it, I didn't have to pay for it. Training as an employee, nobody talks about how actually amazing that is. And if you have a really good boss, they're willing to train you because they want you to be just as good as them. I'm taking quick Coke breaks in between my little Diet Coke, my best friend. Okay, let's see. Pick education that matches your learning style. I love this because I think we're living in such a high saturated time with programs and courses, and we feel like we need to buy so many of them, yet we all hit ourselves in the head when we buy three and we don't even end up watching any of them. And the reason why is because you're not being specific enough with what programs you want and you're trying to like fast track your learning. My recommendation is to like gift yourself two programs a year from anybody, whether it's a brand, whether it's a singular person, like, I had the waxing guide for a while, whether it's in person, it doesn't matter. Map yourself out too. You get write offs. So you shouldn't be doing none. An esthetician that is not willing to continue to learn is not going to be an esthetician in the long term game in this field. So pick two, but make sure that you're not overpicking. And then, you know what I kind of want to remind people about courses and programs? Because some people will take them and be like, they'll complain or they'll be like, it was a waste of time or I didn't learn anything or anything like that. It's not a course problem. I will tell you 99.8% of the time, the reason why people aren't happy with courses, and not because there's like courses that are not good. Like I've definitely taken a course and regretted it. But again, it was like a low cost entry. So, you kind of get what you pay for. But um it's not a course problem, it's a discipline problem. I find that most people are actually really bad at disciplining themselves than they are at learning. Learning's not the problem. When you're in the mood, you'll do it, but it's the discipline. It's the actually sitting down and doing the actionable steps and following through and going to the training calls and doing all of that stuff and then going into your business, but like getting free models and doing content and posting and all of that stuff. It's so hard and it's a discipline problem. It's just like I say, like working out, right? Like working out sucks. The first day you go to work out, you hate yourself. The fourth time you work out, you definitely hate yourself because you're so sore. And then after 2 weeks, like even though start to feel better, you usually go off the bandwagon because you haven't put that discipline in place to make yourself wake up and go anyway on the days that you don't want to go and things like that. And so what I want to say about that is you don't need 100 certifications. You just need to do one or two a year. And then you need to focus on your discipline when you do decide on which programs that you want to take, understand who you are as a person. Are you a visual learner or are you a hands-on learner? Know yourself whenever you buy these things. Is it worth it to spend the extra $1,000 or $2,000 to go to an in-person class because you are going to absorb more information when you do hands-on and maybe you like the networking side of that, then do that. And if you're somebody who prefers an online course, because you like to go back and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch, and you feel like you can implement in your room just the same, do that. I think there's different routes for courses. I don't think one's better than the other. I think there's just programs that are different and better for some versus others. And then trust your gut when choosing an educator. There's so many educators out there. I know it can seem overwhelming, but most of the time, the best people you learn from are the people that you really think you're going to vibe with in real life. And I say that because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person in that program. So the worst thing you could do is join a program where you're like, I don't like this. Like me and this person couldn't even go to dinner, let alone, me sit here and watch their program. When you like somebody, you end up showing up. Think of like actresses. Like if, for instance, I well, Blake Lively is getting a lot of bad rep right now, but can I use her as an example and you guys not like come for me? There was a period of time where, and it was because of Gossip Girl. I loved Gossip Girl growing up. And so I fell in love with her character, Serena. And when she would go into other movies, I would just watch them. Like it didn't even matter what the plot was. I wanted to see it because I wanted to see Blake Lively. And so I didn't even, like I enjoyed the movie just because I liked her. So kind of take that into consideration with courses. Like if you like somebody, chances are you're going to have a really good time in their program because you like them as a person and you're going to, respect them more as a mentor and all of that stuff. So that's my advice with that. But definitely do education, pick it thoughtfully, and make sure you remember that education is a write off. And so it is an investment in yourself. It's not a cost, it's an investment. Always change your attitude around programs. Next, this is probably one of my favorites because we're just living in such a rapid time with social media, but don't let Instagram run your business. And what I mean by that is Instagram is such a great tool for getting yourself out there, promoting yourself, and of course, getting people coming in and booking. Like, don't get me wrong, Instagram is great. It's a fantastic tool because it's free, which is why I also like TikTok, LinkedIn, like all of the free platforms you should be on. But do not just base your whole business off of Instagram bookings. If I could go back and do everything different, I promise you, this is the one thing if all of these things are listed today and I'm telling you how I would do it different, and I had to pick one thing I wish I would have done the most different, it is this. So listen very, very clearly to me. I wish that when I started the podcast or the waxing guide, which kind of sort of got there, Tampa Waxer, I wish that I went into it with a better plan in terms of like marketing, SEO, and branding, what my voice was, what my mission was, and what I planned to say. I tell you this because when you have these core values in the business that you are going to start, all of the other stuff becomes so easy. So let me explain to this. So instead of just running your Instagram on or your business on Instagram, you're just throwing spaghetti to the wall trying to reach for virality. If you were to focus instead on a really great platform like your website, on your mission statement, what you know that you want to say, what you're here for, who you help, and like all of those things, it's so much easier to then work on social media knowing that you have what's called these like core pillars. And so like when I'm in a rut with social media, and I'll use Enso as an example, I always know where I should go, right? Like, oh, I'm in a rut. I don't know what to post. Well, I know my core values. I know my mission. I know who I'm speaking to. I know the branding style, the colors, everything like that. Like, let that be your spark. And then now we have ChatGPT and we have all of these platforms that can like help us think for us. I always say, like, don't use these platforms to replace you as a person because we're a creative. We are like the most important person in our business, but use it as a guide and as a tool to help alongside of you, like a work built in assistant. Like, isn't that so crazy? So use all of these core things that you can come up with. Maybe you're in school, maybe you're starting your own business, maybe you just started a business or have started a business for a long time but feel like you like didn't do it right the first time. Like go back and do this. My recommendation for you is not to let Instagram run your business, but let all of your core values run your business and then use Instagram on the sideline. Also, don't forget the importance of old school marketing, which is word of mouth, referrals, experience. All of this stuff is so valuable to you and growing your business. I will tell you that most of my stuff does not come from Instagram. Most of my new bookings are never there. They're always from word of mouth and they're always from referral. And then people that find us for Enso always find us through like ads, which is, SEO, not which is SEO. SEO is different, but like ads because I put money into that. Also SEO, blog posts, searching Google, things like that. And then our website. So like, yes, they may see us on Instagram, but then they take us serious through all of the other funnels. It's called a funnel. So when I say funnel, there's many, many layers of a funnel if you have a business that you want to scale. So like top of the funnel might be something like social media, like something where people are like, ooh, what's that? And then as they guide themselves down the funnel, they reach different places. So they reach your website, they reach your booking system, then they join the emails. So then they reach your emails and then they reach your SMS and then they start to like hear from you more often. The layers of the funnel are, it just depends. Everybody has like different layers of funnels and like all of that stuff. But like basically like a funnel is what you think about it. It's like a vortex in. So like once they're in, you have all like it's like it's like Pac-Man. It's like ding, 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 ding. You're hitting them at like all angles until they hit that purchase button because it's so much harder these days. We're really living in like a fast track. Either people are like, bam, they like an ad, they buy now, or it takes them multiple times. So if there was something that I could do different, it would be in school, I would have already been paying for a branding ordeal, a website. I would have already like done my core mission statement and everything like that. Again, I know we're broke and not busy in school, but stop buying coffee, stop doing all the small stuffs and work on the future you that you want to be. That's my advice. Listen to me. I will not steer you wrong on this podcast. I really won't. In my heart, at least. I'm not steering you wrong. Ooh, I like this next one. Okay. This is going to be about pricing. I didn't do this. I didn't do this one because I was an employee first. And so it wasn't up to me what I would price things at. But if you're somebody that's going to go out on their own or you're somebody who's getting out of school, this one's more for people that are going to go out on their own. Don't try to just don't start small with pricing. Like price the way that you want to price that you can actually make money. So like be more strategic. Don't just say, "Oh, well, I'll do $18 brows because I know that's what's going to get me booked." Is that what's going to make you money though? Is that what's going to make you money? And that's how you have to figure, that's a question for you to figure out yourself. You need to realistically figure out what all you need in your room, price it all out, and then you need to realistically figure out what you're carrying in your room product wise. And then you need to do the math to figure out exactly what that would mean for profit. So, like, you have, your cost coming in, which is services, but then you also have your cost deducted, which is products, rent, if you're paying off something like that credit card, whatever it may be. And then you also want to make sure you're saving some back from taxes as well as keeping some for your pocket because you deserve to pay yourself. You're working really hard. And I think we're going to get into an episode all about that by itself because I know that this is like the number one thing I struggled with and I still do struggle with. So we can learn this together. That's something that we can do. But don't start your prices just because you think people are going to book with low prices. You're not going to be able to pay yourself and you're going to end up having a second job. Just don't do it. Don't do it. And then whenever you inevitably raise your prices, they can be like a small raise. So like $1, $2 instead of like inevitably having to go, okay, I need to raise my prices by $10. Like that's a big shock to people, but $2 is nothing. And then my final advice to you is basically, just reminding yourself the fact that you're even listening to this podcast and listening to this specific episode, you're already doing better than most of the masses of people. And I think that's like one of the best advices that I've ever gotten whenever I've like felt like I've only given 1% and not 20% that day. It's like you're already working on being better. So you're already being better. Let's, all stick together when we think about growing our businesses, share tips with your friends and everybody else. Just remember that everybody starts with zero. Everybody starts in like a small room with basic stuff. And you know what? If you're fortunate enough to have like a big backing in some way of like money, then sometimes I'm like, I really do love the fact that like I was like scrappy in the beginning and I've had so many estheticians that share the same story. They make the best story. you really do appreciate when you make it. Like you really do appreciate it because you know how hard you worked. For all of those that have like the investments, the money and all the savings and stuff like that, listen, I'm not hating. I'm actually just jealous. That's me projecting. But you're doing amazing. You're doing amazing, sweetie. And then I was just talking about this with my sister today because my sister is kind of lost right now. Like she's been doing hair for a long time. She's really good at it, but she is like wanting to do other stuff and she feels like she wants to do it tomorrow. But just a reminder to yourself, like be patient, be consistent. For example, have been an esthetician for 13 years. I've been a waxer for, again, I think almost 10. I don't know. My math is always messed up after like 7 years. I've like given up, but I'm not where I thought I would. I'm not where I want to be. But like if I told myself 13 years ago where I am now, I'd be so proud. But the thing is like it's really hard to measure that. But I will tell you, like, as long as you're giving 1% every single day, I promise you nothing bad can happen because you're going in with the right reasons, the patient reasons. You're not doing things people want you to do. You're on your own path, which is why I'm sharing with you guys, do the branding, do the website, do all of that stuff. But remember, my story's mine. I didn't do it. I'm here now. So I appreciate the branding, the messaging, the voice, all the things I've gathered so much more because of that. But I love the fact that I can give you a timeline that is much shorter than mine. I think that's the cool thing about living in 2025, like I've said in the past episode. Do your best, be consistent, get disciplined, and just know you can do it. Just know that you can do it. If I bartended for years after I got my license and didn't even start until I felt like I forgot everything, and now I'm talking to you in your ear, it's because I woke up one day and said, I can do it. Only hard until it's not. And we literally have one life to live. And if it makes you feel any better, we're a literal rock on a moving planet. So just go do it. You have literally nothing to lose. Okay, until next time. Thank you for listening to the Waxing Podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, be sure to follow the show and leave a review. It helps continue creating resources for beauty pros just like you. For updates and more, follow us on Instagram at the Waxing Podcast. I'll see you next week.